The American Old West is full of tales that sound too bizarre to be true, yet they are. From outlaws pulling off the most unbelievable heists to lawmen living through encounters that seem straight out of a movie, the Wild West was as strange as it was lawless. But what if I told you that many of these incredible stories are grounded in reality? In this video, we're about to dive into some of the most jaw-dropping moments of the Old West that sound made up, but are, in fact, real. If you enjoy these wild tales, don't forget to subscribe to support the channel and keep the stories coming. Old West saloons sold strychnine and turpentine to thirsty cowboys. In the Old West, cowboys, prospectors, and miners weren't particularly discerning when it came to their choice of alcohol. One of the more notorious drinks served in saloons was known as tarantula juice, a concoction sold in some Sierra Nevada watering holes. But this drink was far from ordinary. It contained strychnine, a toxic substance that could cause severe reactions. However, strychnine wasn't the only dangerous ingredient. Tarantula juice also included wood grain alcohol, which was typically distilled from turpentine, a substance used in various industrial processes. This alcohol was often consumed due to its low cost and availability, though it was highly hazardous. What did this mean for the men who ordered a drink of tarantula juice? Initially, the strychnine would give them a burst of energy, creating a sensation similar to the effects of methamphetamine. But as the body processed the toxic mix, the drinkers would experience an uncomfortable, almost eerie sensation, as though tarantulas were crawling under their skin. This was often followed by muscle spasms and, in some cases, lockjaw, a painful condition that left the jaw stiff and immovable. These terrifying side effects were a grim reminder of how desperate and reckless some Old West drinkers could be when seeking a cheap thrill. Chief Sitting Bull sent $65 and a messenger to Annie Oakley's hotel room. Chief Sitting Bull, the respected Lakota leader who famously led his people to victory over General George Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, found himself captivated by the sharp-shooting skills of Annie Oakley. In 1884, while in Minnesota, Sitting Bull watched Oakley's performance and was reportedly so taken by her talent that he sent $65, a significant sum at the time, to her hotel room, hoping to receive a signed photograph. Instead of accepting his payment, Oakley decided to make a more personal gesture. She requested a meeting with the legendary chief, a move that ultimately led to a remarkable connection. Oakley later recounted that Sitting Bull was so impressed by her skills that he decided to symbolically adopt her, giving her the Lakota name Watanya Cecilia, which translates to Little Sure Shot. Their friendship deepened in the years that followed, especially during their time together in Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show. Oakley spoke warmly of Sitting Bull, describing him as a dear, faithful old friend for whom she held deep respect and affection. Their unlikely bond became one of mutual admiration, bridging two vastly different worlds through a shared sense of respect and honor. Martha Jane Canary was immune to smallpox. Smallpox was a deadly threat in the Old West, spreading quickly through communities with limited medical resources. But one figure who beat the odds and survived the disease as a child, Calamity Jane, later used her immunity to care for others in desperate need. Jane, born Martha Jane Canary, contracted smallpox at a young age and narrowly survived the illness, which left her with immunity in an era when such survival was rare. Years later, when smallpox struck the mining town of Deadwood, South Dakota, Jane stepped in as an untrained but determined caregiver. During this outbreak, she nursed 8 miners who had contracted the disease, an act that many in Deadwood would remember with admiration. Despite having no formal medical background, Jane took on the roles of both nurse and protector, tending to the men in makeshift quarantine tents set up on the town's outskirts. The sick were isolated in cramped conditions without access to basic amenities like clean water, adding to their suffering and isolation. Jane's approach to caring for the sick relied on a mix of folk remedies and her own grit. She used herbal treatments and Epsom salts to provide relief, drawing on whatever knowledge she had to ease the symptoms of her patients. One eyewitness even described Jane as a perfect angel sent from heaven, highlighting the profound gratitude and admiration the townspeople felt for her. But Jane's commitment went beyond simple nursing. She ensured the men had supplies by forcibly securing groceries and fresh water when others avoided the area for fear of infection. Reports say she even brandished a gun at one point to make sure her patients received what they needed. In the end, 5 of the 8 men survived, a testament to her dedication and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Local doctors later acknowledged that without Calamity Jane's fearless caregiving, all 8 likely would have succumbed to the disease. Her actions left an enduring legacy in Deadwood, marking her as one of the town's true legends and illustrating the powerful role that personal courage and community care played in the harsh environment of the Old West. Billy the Kid asked to use the outhouse. In 1881, the infamous outlaw Billy the Kid faced a $500 bounty on his head, wanted for the killing of a sheriff in Nebraska and another man during a confrontation in a New Mexico saloon. The bounty and pressure from local law enforcement finally led to his capture, and Billy was soon brought to trial. His reputation as a daring gunman and fugitive preceded him, and the court proceedings were swift. The judge declared him guilty and ordered him to be hanged. Defiant to the end, Billy reportedly responded with equal bravado, declaring, "You can go to hell, hell, hell." With his execution date set, Billy had little intention of waiting for the gallows. On April 28, 1881, he seized an opportunity to escape. Claiming he needed to visit the outhouse, he persuaded the deputy to escort him out of his cell. As soon as he had the chance, Billy made his move. He slipped out of his handcuffs, overpowered the guard, seized his weapon, and fatally shot him in his desperate bid for freedom. But Billy wasn't done. Realizing the sheriff would be in pursuit, he quickly took advantage of his surroundings and hid on the roof of the courthouse, waiting for his moment. When the sheriff came rushing out in search of his prisoner, Billy taunted him from above, reportedly shouting, "Look up, old boy, and see what you get," before taking aim and firing. With his escape nearly secured, Billy the Kid didn't hesitate. He seized a nearby horse and rode out of town, leaving Deadwood in shock and law enforcement humiliated by his bold getaway. This daring escape only fueled his legend, portraying him as a cunning and fearless fugitive who repeatedly outwitted his captors. Though he would eventually meet his end at the hands of Sheriff Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid's dramatic breakout cemented his place as one of the Wild West's most notorious and elusive outlaws. Geronimo ran its soldiers in a zigzag pattern. Before he became the revered leader of the Apache, Geronimo didn't yet know how to use a rifle, but he was determined to defend his people using whatever methods he could. His motivation grew deeply personal when Mexican soldiers tragically took the lives of his wife and children. This loss drove him to seek justice, and he swore to hold those responsible accountable. One evening, as he prepared himself for the challenges ahead, Geronimo reportedly received a message from the mountain spirits. According to his accounts, he heard them promise, "You will never die in battle, nor, by gun, I will guide your arrows." This message strengthened his resolve, instilling in him a belief that his mission was protected and that he could rely on the guidance of the spirits in his pursuit of justice. When confronting Mexican soldiers in battle, Geronimo chose an unconventional strategy. Rather than attacking from a distance using arrows, he courageously closed the gap between himself and his opponents. Moving swiftly and unpredictably in a zigzag pattern, he made it difficult for the soldiers to aim at him. With remarkable agility, he reached the soldiers and disarmed them, securing their rifles and retreating with these weapons to equip his Apache comrades. This daring approach left such a strong impression on the Mexican soldiers that his name became a cry of alarm whenever the Apache approached. This expression of awe and respect persisted, and the call of Geronimo became a lasting symbol of his fearlessness. In time, Geronimo's legendary tactics and steadfast courage earned him a prominent place in the history of the Apache people, reflecting not only his skill, but also his unyielding dedication to his community. Jesse James got the nickname Dingus after yelling "Ding it." Jesse James was one of the most feared outlaws of his time, known for his notorious raids on trains, stagecoaches, and banks across the West. His reputation spread quickly, with popular songs describing him as bold and bad and brave. capturing both the audacity and daring that defined his career. Yet despite his fearsome persona, Jesse carried an unusual nickname that hinted at a different side of his youth: Dingus. This nickname originated during his teenage years. In June 1864, young Jesse attempted to make a quick getaway with a stolen saddle, but the farmer he took it from fired at him, leaving him with an injury that would take time to heal. While he was still recuperating, Jesse had a mishap while handling a revolver, accidentally injuring his hand in the process. In his frustration and pain, he shouted, "Oh, ding it! Ding it! How it hurts!" His exclamation amused his family, who took to calling him Dingus in response. This nickname, a term of endearment from his family, followed Jesse into his adult life, reflecting a youthful vulnerability that stood in contrast to his later, more hardened image. For those closest to him, Dingus was a reminder of his early years before his outlaw path took hold. The nickname softened his intimidating reputation, offering a glimpse into the human side of one of America's most famous outlaws. Buffalo Bill performed at Queen Victoria's Jubilee. Buffalo Bill Cody was a pioneer in transforming the rugged life of the Wild West into an entertaining spectacle for audiences far beyond American borders. In 1887, he took his legendary Wild West show on an ambitious tour to London, where he aimed to perform for Queen Victoria's Jubilee celebration. This was no small feat. Cody brought along a massive ensemble, including over 200 performers, 180 horses, 18 buffalo, 10 elk, 5 Texas longhorns, 4 donkeys, and 2 deer. His goal was to create an authentic and immersive experience, showcasing the diversity of the American frontier. When the show arrived in Great Britain, it quickly made waves. At one memorable performance, sharpshooter Annie Oakley extended her hand to greet the Prince of Wales, nearly sparking a minor diplomatic stir with the future King Edward VII. However, the prince was captivated by the performance and encouraged Queen Victoria to attend, which she eventually did. The British public was equally enthralled, with crowds of up to 30,000 people gathering to witness the spectacle of the Wild West up close, marveling at the recreation of an American experience previously known to them only through tales and news reports. Buffalo Bill was not only an entertainer, but also a forward-thinking advocate on social issues. When asked about his stance on women's voting rights, Cody was quick to declare his support. "Set that down in great big black type that Buffalo Bill favors women's suffrage," he asserted, voicing a progressive perspective for his time. Cody argued that if a woman could perform the same work as a man and match his skill, she deserved equal pay and opportunities. His openness to women's rights and his platform as an internationally known showman gave his opinions significant influence, adding to his legacy as both a promoter of the Wild West and a progressive voice for change. Medicine women like Dr. Quinn really were part of the Old West. Though Dr. Michaela Quinn is a fictional character, real women physicians practiced across the western frontier, meeting the region's growing need for medical care. The scarcity of doctors in the Old West gave women a rare opportunity to enter the competitive field of medicine. These pioneering women worked tirelessly, facing physical and social challenges as they carved out their roles as doctors. One such trailblazer, Dr. Bethenia Owens Adair, pursued her medical studies in Michigan in the 1870s. Upon graduation, she moved to Oregon, where her commitment to reaching patients was unparalleled. She traversed overgrown trails and navigated floods, enduring rugged and unpredictable terrain to reach those in need of her skills. Her dedication exemplified the perseverance of early women doctors who served in remote and often underserved communities. Dr. Mary Purvine was another example of this determination. Originally from New England, Purvine was inspired to pursue medicine after a woman doctor tended to her mother's broken arm. She later enrolled in Willamette University's medical program, setting out for the West to build her own practice. Once Purvine ventured out in a fierce snowstorm and waded through a swollen river to deliver a baby. In gratitude, the parents named the child after her, a small but enduring tribute to the lengths she went for her patients. However, her payment for this service came in unusual installments. After her marriage, the family began to pay her weekly in bushels of tomatoes. Years later, she humorously recalled her distaste for sliced tomatoes, saying, "No wonder I don't care for sliced tomatoes," highlighting the modest rewards and sacrifices that came with frontier medicine. The commitment of these women doctors was not just about tending to the sick. It was about pioneering a path for women in medicine and redefining what was possible for female professionals in the Wild West. Seth Bullock and Al Swearingen from HBO's Deadwood were real people. Seth Bullock and Al Swearingen weren't just fictional rivals from HBO's Deadwood series. They were both real figures in the actual gold rush town of Deadwood. These two men played central roles in shaping the town, though in very different ways. Seth Bullock, originally from Canada, lived in Michigan and Montana before settling in Deadwood. A former lawman with a reputation for integrity, Bullock initially set up a hardware business in the bustling town. In typical frontier fashion, he kicked things off with an auction on chamber pots, drawing attention from the community. For over 20 years, Bullock dedicated himself to bringing order to Deadwood, a town often defined by its unruly atmosphere. His efforts made him a respected figure, and he became a key pillar in establishing stability within the community. Meanwhile, Al Swearingen was also very much a real person, and even had a twin brother. Swearingen arrived in Deadwood in 1876 and opened the Gem Variety Theater, a lively venue that quickly became one of the town's most popular attractions. The Gem hosted performances and bouts that drew spectators eager for entertainment, filling the establishment nightly. Swearingen's theater was wildly successful, at times pulling in as much as $10,000 in a single evening, a considerable sum for the late 1800s. While the HBO series portrayed Bullock and Swearingen as fierce rivals, their relationship in real life was less of a direct conflict. Instead, they divided Deadwood along an unspoken boundary. Bullock's side of town represented the more orderly parts of the settlement, while Swearingen's area, often called the Badlands, was known for its rowdier atmosphere. This unwritten division allowed each to operate in his sphere, maintaining a kind of balance that let Deadwood function as a single, if divided, community. The coexistence of Bullock's commitment to order and Swearingen's spirited entertainment business reflected the dual nature of Deadwood itself. A town balanced between the drive for structure and the pull of the untamed West. A train company slammed two locomotives together as a marketing stunt. In the 1890s, a man named William Crush, who worked for a Texas railroad, devised a bold plan to capture public attention and promote the railway. His idea? Stage a head-on collision between two locomotives. Crush and the railroad company decided to turn this daring concept into a reality by creating a temporary town named Crush near Waco, Texas. On September 15, 1896, an estimated 40,000 people, making it briefly the second largest city in the state, gathered to witness this spectacle. It was a diverse crowd, as the Galveston Daily News described: men, women and children, lawyers, doctors, merchants, farmers, artisans, clerks, representing every class and every grade of society assembled, buzzing with excitement over the collision. Shortly after 5 p.m., the event began. Engineers started each locomotive on its path and then jumped to safety as the massive engines thundered down the track toward each other, reaching speeds of around 50 miles per hour. The crowd watched in breathless anticipation as the two engines finally collided with tremendous force. A spectator recounted the deafening crash, followed by a shower of wooden fragments and metal debris scattered into the air. In the seconds that followed, the boilers on both trains burst simultaneously, sending shards of iron and steel into the sky. Pieces as small as postage stamps and as large as parts of the train's driving wheels scattered across the grounds, showering the crowd indiscriminately. Tragically, 2 lives were lost, and several others were injured by the flying debris. One photographer capturing the event lost an eye due to the unexpected explosion, highlighting the danger of this spectacle. While the railroad company initially dismissed Crush for the event's unintended outcome, the overwhelming media coverage that followed gave the company significant publicity. Seeing the attention and public intrigue generated by the crash, the company rehired him, recognizing the unusual success of an event that had now captured global headlines. The crash at Crush became a unique episode in American history, illustrating the era's blend of public curiosity, industrial spectacle, and the willingness to test boundaries even with uncertain risks. The Army imported camels to Texas, where they terrorized settlers across the Old West. In 1855, the U.S. Army experimented with an unusual idea, bringing camels to the American Southwest. With vast, dry expanses resembling the deserts of the Middle East, the western landscape seemed well suited for these sturdy animals. The government acquired around 75 camels from the Middle East, hoping their endurance and strength would aid military transport. Stationed at Camp Verde in Texas, these camels soon took on the work of carrying supplies to nearby towns like San Antonio, proving their value as pack animals. However, this Camel Corps project was short-lived. When the Civil War broke out, many government operations in the region were disrupted. Eventually, an official decided to auction off the camels, putting an end to the experiment. Some of the camels ended up working in Nevada and California, where they continued hauling goods across desert trails. Others were simply released into the wild, left to roam the southwestern frontier on their own. For years after the experiment, sightings of wild camels became an intriguing part of local lore. By the 1880s, one particular camel gained notoriety in Arizona territory, earning the name the Red Ghost. Local stories claim the Red Ghost had trampled one woman, and a more exaggerated tale even suggested it had once confronted and defeated a grizzly bear. The mystery grew when miners spotted the animal and fired at it, causing a human skull to fall from the camel's back. This sighting added to the Red Ghost's frightening reputation, sparking rumors that it carried the ghost of a lost rider. After many years of wandering the region and feeding legends, the Red Ghost was finally stopped, revealing it to be just a lone, feral camel that had adapted to the wild. Though sightings of camels in the western United States became rare by the 20th century, their story lives on as one of the more unusual chapters in American frontier history, a reminder of the innovative and experimental spirit of the time. Wild Bill Hickok took out a man who allegedly called him Duck Bill because of his pointy nose. The legend of Wild Bill Hickok began to take shape in 1861 during his time with the Pony Express in Nebraska. It was here that Hickok's reputation as a sharpshooter first emerged, following an incident with a customer. In the altercation, Hickok fired at the man, marking his first kill. What motivated Hickok's actions? The customer had insulted him, calling him Duck Bill, a reference to Hickok's prominent nose. This taunt seemed to ignite a fierce reaction from the young man, leading to the deadly confrontation. The aftermath of the incident was dramatic. 3 men lost their lives, and Hickok found himself facing trial. However, the court ultimately acquitted him, allowing him to continue his life and career. Hickok's actions weren't confined to this one episode. His legend grew with each tale of his remarkable feats. Other stories tell of him wrestling a bear and making impossible shots, such as firing at the center of an O on a poster from 50 yards away, hitting the target 6 times in a row. With such a formidable reputation, Wild Bill Hickok quickly became a figure to be reckoned with in the Old West. His combination of skill, fearlessness, and legendary encounters made him a man many would prefer to avoid, cementing his status as one of the most iconic figures in the history of the American frontier. As you can see, the Old West was filled with tales that sound like they belong in the realm of fiction, but these stories are grounded in the wild, unpredictable history of America's frontier. From daring escapes to unbelievable encounters, the legends of the Old West continue to captivate us because of the very fact that they blur the line between reality and myth. If you enjoyed diving into these astonishing true stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more fascinating tales from the American Old West. There's plenty more where this came from, and we'd love for you to join us on the journey into history's most incredible and sometimes unbelievable moments.